Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Welcome to the edition of the Pan-African Pyramid Show here at Fairway Hotel in Kampala. This show runs here every Friday from 8 p.m. live at Fairway Hotel in Kampala. And the recorded version runs on NBS Television on Saturday from 4 to 5. We are powered by NBS Television, Fairway Hotel, The Spy Uganda, and Detective UG. Ladies and gentlemen, on 19th of December, we shall be going to Chakatu refugee settlement in Western Uganda to deliver relief aid. You know, we've been doing this for as long as we've lived. We have previously visited several camps in Bidibidi, Kiriandongo, Nakivale, and Rwamwanza. And so this December, we are taking relief aid to the refugees of Chakatu refugee settlement. We have about 150,000 refugees staying there. And according to the research that I got on Wednesday when I went there, are actually people from as far as Ethiopia, Rwanda, DRC, and South Sudanese and Sudanese. So actually there is a mixture of so many cultures there, so many tribes, and so many traditions. So I think our support as Pan-Africanists is timely. We couldn't have done it better. Ladies and gentlemen, this week we are discussing the Somalia. Somalia has been admitted as the 8th member of the East African community on Friday, November 24th, just over a year after the latest entrant, the DRC Congo, was admitted into the bloc. Mogadishu's admission into the bloc was approved by the region's leaders during the 23rd Ordinary Summit of the Heads of State held in Arusha, Tanzania, on the same day after successful negotiations that lasted close to a year. The outgoing chairperson, Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye, said the Heads of State agreed to formally admit Somalia into the bloc after the lengthy closed-door meetings which lasted more than 5 hours on that day. Somalia first expressed interest in joining the East African community in 2012, but was turned down due to its internal troubles with Al-Shabaab and lack of a stable legal and political environment at the time. However, Mogadishu's hopes of joining the regional bloc were rekindled when equally troubled South Sudan was admitted in 2016, and later Democratic Republic of Congo, which has also multiple conflicts within its borders, in 2022. With the return of President Mahmoud, who had initiated the first attempt at joining the EAC during the first term in office in 2012, Somalia renewed the bid to join the bloc, and a verification mission was dispatched in January this year to verify its readiness to join the bloc. In August, Somalia officials engaged in negotiations with EAC officials, after which a report was drafted and forwarded to the Council of Ministers for discussions before it was forwarded to the Heads of State Summit held last Friday. Somalia's entrance into the EAC will now pave way for the admission of its neighbors Eritrea and Djibouti, which have also been targeted in EAC's expansion plan to include the entire Horn of Africa, including Ethiopia and possibly Sudan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we know that there could be some social, economic, and political inclinations there. There could be some issues to do with how do you deal now with the Somalia being part of EAC, but with the Somalia that is having Al-Shabaab and so many other issues. So we are asking, how will this affect the region, socially, economically, and politically? And so our topic tonight goes, what are the security, political, and socio-economic implications of Somalia becoming EAC member state?
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
So, I want to start by saying that welcome to the new members of the East African community. I have a message. I have a message to you, and the message is quite clear. Pan-Africanism is alive, and it is extending, right? The same way China extended its power to the Silk Road, the same way Russia extending power to Africa. Pan-Africanism here on this continent is growing. So I want us to think about that. And why is that a good news for us? It's a good news for us because when looking at the history of Somalia, you see that Somalia is in really, really strategic positions. Right here. Right here you have the Red Sea and the Suez Canal that goes to the Mediterranean Oceans. And it's also the entry door of the Indian Ocean. Right? We all need to be aware of how significant the map is. So Somalian coast, especially the northern coast, is highly, highly important for geopolitics today. But it has been important yesterday and the day before. Just near Somalia is Djibouti. Djibouti has not just one military base. The French are there. Who else is in Djibouti and a military base in order to control the Red Sea? The French are there. The Americans have a military base. The Chinese have a military base. The only military base outside of Asia for China is here. It's not in Europe, it's not in the US, it's not in Latin America, it's right here. Right here. Russian have a base, and European Unions has also its own base, mainly driven by Italians. You have 6 powers, 6 main powers that are all gathering right here in north of Somalia in order to control the most important trade road. The trade road that goes between Europe, Arabia Saudi and the Middle East, and Asia. Everything that Europeans have that comes from Asia pass by the coast of Somalia. Are we all clear about that? It's really important to understand that. This is not just a small place. And historically, it has never been a small place. It has always been a center for global power to fight. So why are we happy today? We are happy because Somalia is falling. Somalia is rebuilding from long years of civil wars, right? We can speak of the why and the how. But why we are happy today is that East Africa is claiming back Somalia. East Africa is claiming back the land, the entrance of Suez Canal and the Mediterranean. Those coasts of Somalia are the entrance of European trade. If East Africa decide, let's imagine East African community decide Somalia is entering, if they decide to block here, they agree with Yemen to block the entrance of this. Europe will starve in 2 weeks. It's important to understand that. Only like recently, do you remember that the Suez Canal got blocked for like 5 or 6 days, something like this? I don't even exactly remember the amount of days. Europe were on its knees. My very own sister had to stop working for 2 weeks just because the Suez Canal was blocked. Because all what Europe is making, consuming, is Asian product. And all of it passed by the African coastland, and especially by Somalia, which is the entrance of that trade. So when you think of Europe buying things from Somalia, buying things from Asia, you think of the geopolitical, strategical importance of Somalia. Whoever controls those costs do control an important part of international trade. That's really important we understand. And that always have been like this. Why is it significant? It's significant because it shows the history of Somalia is a history that goes from the other side of the sea. It's a history that goes from the African continent to the peninsula of Arabia, right? And why is it significant and important? It is because when we think of the importance of Somalia today, we're taking all that history with us. And the history of Somalia is a history of a global presence. The Somalians used to know how to control that trade. So Pan-Africanists need to always to look at history. I think it's really important. Different map. Those are the map of the trading zone of Somali cities. So those cities, Mosilium, Pano, Opone, and Mogadishu here, we're trading with all the cities you see with blue points here. So I don't know if we really understand, but today how much product came out of Somalia to go to India? Today how much Indian people dress with Somalian dress. Not so much. But there used to be a time like this, and that's a time Pan-Africans should not forget.
Okay.
That was to answer the question, what makes Somalia an East African state? East African in terms of history. When we look at the history of East Africa, we know the significance of Somalia culture and Somalia approaches.
So now, Comrade, what I wanted you also to talk about the security implication of Somalia joining EAC. As you know that Somalia is infested with Al-Shabaab and other terror groups. Does that mean that it's going to give this terror organization free access to the rest of the EAC?
Thanks so much for this question. So the first part of the presentation
I wanted you also to discuss the political implications
of it. The first part is to answer this question, we always need to look at history. I hope all the students in the room understand that. Now we can look at the situation of today, okay? 2023, where are we when it comes to this? Where are we? We are the East Africa is in a situation where it's expanding, successfully expanding to South Sudan, to DRC, right? And now to Somalia. So the regional bloc is a regional bloc in extension. It's moving forward. Pan-Africanism, as I said at the beginning, is moving forward. But is the question, is it moving too quick? I don't think we should be happy, just happy about the fact that it's moving on that direction. The question is, are the institutions in place able to handle all the drama that come out of Somalia, right? And here I think we have an answer. The answer is not in Somalia, the answer is in DRC. The history of DRC exchange with East Africa is a history of domination. It's a history of looting. Yeah. We're thinking of the Arab from Zanzibar, Tupo that used to go from Zanzibar to take slave in Congo. So that history is not a history that we want to reopen, right? What I said in this intervention is that East Africa will send its army to Congo and fail. And we should expect them to fail. We should be happy for them to fail because Congo is a complicated place.
Why do you become happy when someone
Because
fails?
Congolese are the ones that are supposed to sort the issues, not Ugandan army or Rwandan army. Look at what Rwanda is doing in the east of Congo. It's a sad story, but when you look at it, it's a long story. It's not a short story. It's a long story of looting from East Africa.
The East Africans stand by force.
They become East African by force. Let's put it like this. Did East African community, the EAC, did they manage to sort out the Eastern Congo problem? Have we seen a peaceful Congo since East African army are there? No. And guess what? Last week they announced that
neither have we seen a peaceful Congo since the intervention of
Mobutu.
UN peace mission.
Since Mobutu, basically, like when Mobutu left, after that is drama for Congo. So the point was, the East African community were not able to sort out military problems in DRC.
Yes.
So that should help us to answer the question: will the East African community sort out Somalian politics? No. Only Somali will sort out their politics. That have to be really clear. No more imperialism. Whatever it comes from the Kenya or it comes from or Rwanda. We cannot do that. Somalis have their destiny in their hands. Let's not be fooled. By those developments. Those developments are important because they're institutional development. But Somalis have not waited Somalia to enter the East African community to enter East Africa. They're here. They're trading in Kenya, they're trading in Uganda, they're also trading, they open trading roads in Sudan and South Sudan, right? So Somali presence is here. What we have seen, Somalia entering the East African community is an institutional move to open Somalia to the interest of the East African state. But the Somalian people themselves, thanks to the failed state that they have, as explained, thanks to that, they have been moving all around East Africa before, and East Africa, it's an integrated part. It's an integrated geographical part of Africa where we find people from all the East in all the cities of Kampala, Juba, Khartoum, or Mogadishu.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
So the landmass of Africa is around 30 square kilometers, and that you can feel the United States of America, Eastern Europe, India, China, Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, Italy, the UK, and Japan. So the map they're showing us is compressed, it's not the real map. And if you look at, if you compare it to the Republic of Russia, Africa is around 1.8 times Russia. So last Friday, Somalia became East Africa's 8th member. So he joined the bloc. And if you were to review the remarks of the Kenyan President Dr. Ruto, he said the East African community is the most integrated and progressive economic community within the whole of the African continent. So Somalia joining is quite interesting. And there are some implications of it joining this fastest growing community. So one of those implications is the rich cultural heritage within Somalia. We've got a strategic location like the previous speaker Thomas spoke about. We've got a strategic coastline. It's over 3,000 kilometers, so this is very key within the community. They've got untapped resources. So they've been experiencing, civil war for a few years. So they've got quite a lot of untapped resources. They've got a young, vibrant, and entrepreneurial population, and one of the biggest, advantages of the African continent or the community is its people.
So if you look at the EAC bloc, they've got an aspiration of all member countries not to have a debt level which is beyond around 50% GDP. And this is towards actualization of the monetary union within the EAC. So, which is one of the pillars of economic integration. So you find that out of the present 8 members of the EAC, most of them have not met this aspiration of debt levels being less than 50% of GDP. Somalia, the new entrant, actually has already gotten there, and they are projected to reduce their debt stock significantly before the end of this year, 2023. So currently, if you look at Somalia's debt is around 32% of GDP, having fallen from highs of 73% in 2025. And from their projections, the Somalis, their debt ratio is projected to fall further before the end of 2023. And you'd ask yourself, so with all the economic strifes they've had, the civil wars, and the failed state, like some of you have referred to it, how are they able to achieve these lower debt levels? So the Somalis have been, most of their debt has been forgiven and is continuing to be forgiven by the IMF, by the G20, by other lending partners, and also the Paris Club. So exploring further the new entrant, how they will affect the community economically. If you look at Somalia's fiscal deficit, it's the least in the region, and they are the only country to have a desired ratio of around 3% fiscal deficit of GDP. And so the EAC set a ceiling of around 3%. So Somalia is hitting that benchmark. And also, if you look at their budgetary deficit, Somalia right now is around last year, 2022, their budget deficit was around 0.1% of GDP. And this is according to International Monetary Fund, IMF data. And this year they are hovering around 0.2%. So with that, Somalia joining the EAC, you'll find that there are advantages within the aspirations of AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Area. So yeah, we have bigger numbers now, so we can trade internally. And if we are to echo the words of the late Thomas Sankara, His Excellency of Burkina Faso, he said, let's make the African market as Pan-Africans, the African market, the market of Africans. Let's produce in Africa, transform in Africa, and consume in Africa. Let's produce what we need and let's consume what we produce instead of importing. So with the enlargement of the EAC, we are working towards this aspiration of intra-African trade. But then also you could ask your question. So East African EAC communities enlarging, could there probably be other powers which are fanning these flames of expansion, probably against the core aspirations of the African Union? Because if you look at where they're going, monetary union, and then us as Pan-African, we look at the big picture. So you put question marks. But then also, like when I started this debate, so we said Africa is huge, over 30 million square kilometers. So you can't compare it to Europe. Europe is quite smaller. So probably such smaller groupings like the EAC, like SADC, like ECOWAS, like IGAD, CEMAC, fit in our reality of being a very huge continent. So as Pan-Africans, we know that there is power in numbers, not so?
Yes.
Yeah, so right now, under the auspices of the AfCFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area, Kenya is exporting directly to Ghana. So with Somalia opening up, there is nothing which stops you as young people, if you've got, say, a business, to export to the Somalian market. You give an example of Sudan. When Sudan opened up, Kenyan banks went in, KCB, Equity Bank went into Sudan to tap. Ugandans started exporting, matoke, bananas to Southern Sudan. So those are some of the immediate benefits.
Before I give you and celebrate with other East African member states the admission of Somalia, such a big and awaited blow. Some of us who are fighting for United States of Africa, when you see some blocks admitting more members, of course we are proud of that. Mr. Speaker, as Pan-Africans, unity on agenda, number one. Number two on agenda, unity. Number three on agenda, unity. Number four on agenda is unity. And lastly, that is the way to go. Mr. Speaker, in 1992, from 1991 to 92, when Somalia had serious problems, America and the United States deployed troops. These troops will never yielded anything. America lost more than 18 soldiers. And they left terribly. They lost the war on the ground. Not until Africans realize that only person that can solve Africa's problem, they are Africans themselves. That's why the East African Community member states decided to put a standby fort that is now giving some sanity in Mogadishu. You need also to give a hand of clap to UPDF and other agencies that at least have tried to stabilize Somalia after United States and other colonial powers had failed. You see, let me tell you, and I was surprised by a former speaker who said, Somalia will not achieve anything with this East Africa. I'm telling you, Somalia to be what it is now, it's as a result of the help from other member states. And this is the way to go. Africans must unite and solve their own problems. Secondly, on security, Mr. Speaker, the former Speaker ably showed you the strategic location of Somalia. Actually, Somalia is called the Horn of Africa. This is the gate to Africa. And I agree with him. The moment you close that part of the world, because you see, it's on the shores of Indian Ocean. To us, the East African bloc, we are seeing it as a very, very important, because you see, the north, the west of Somalia is bordering with Djibouti. Djibouti right now, it's not, by the way, if you can go to Djibouti right now, it's under siege. The colonial and these superpower countries, they have military bases. And who invited them? Who invited them? That there is an American military base. To do what? That there is a French military base. To do what? That there is Chinese military base. To do what? Have you ever seen an African military base in France? Why? Can someone say, I'm bringing my son to your home? Say, who are you? And when you say, I'm also bringing mine to yours, you say, no, you haven't reached at that level. These things of super complex and neocolonialism must stop. Now that we have accommodated Somalia to be part of us, we are going to urge Djibouti, Ethiopia, Eritrea, all those countries nearby there to join us. Then we question America. Yes, we question America. What are you doing here with your soldiers? For all those years seated in Egypt, just a stone's throw away, Somalia has never been stable. So what is your role now to have a military base nearby a country which is called a failed state? If really you are very much, if you are the savior, if you are the world savior, and you can oversee things, some of us which we cannot see. You have a military base in the neighborhood, but the country has been called a failed state without any help. You went there and you failed. They killed you. So, the military base is to facilitate the economic progress of the United States, not Africa. Actually, these guys, they are guarding the routing route. Yeah.
Safe passage.
Safe passage.
For their loot.
Yes.
Are you sure?
Africa is a dark continent. Minerals are here for free. So they are guarding animals. You know they call us animals. They are guarding the way so that the animals cannot bite them. Because you can't fight them. You just bite. They are guiding. You don't know that? I didn't know. It's news. You could be alleging. You go to United States Embassy and ask them, what is your presence in Egypt? What will they tell you? One presenter here told you that they are guarding a strategic business position. They are doing the business with who? With Africa. Which Africa when Somalia is at war? So which business are you doing in Somalia? Anyway, the good thing, you now young people, you should see. Now when Egypt and Ethiopia join, one time here, the Pan-Africans, you march to their base and say, now, what are you doing here? By the way, let me tell you, this expansion and allowing more member states to join these blocks, it's a one way of recolonization. In terms of trade, Mr. Speaker. In terms of trade, I think this is it's going to be very, very important. Because the East Africa now, Mr. Speaker, is going to man two important international ports. Now that you have Mogadishu port and you have Mombasa, and you have a big market, because the more you have the members, that's a broke market. and whoever, whether international or local, regional, wants also to have business with you. Then lastly, security. You know, controlling, one of the things which you don't need security is when you have the capacity to control the borders. Now that you have the capacity to control those waters along Indian Ocean, it means, you know what it means? It means you will have a better advantage of controlling these foreign aggressions and imperial forces, and we call them imperial occupations. Because tomorrow they will not have a say to come and to us or have a threat, because nearing Indian Ocean, which can go straight to their countries, can cause a serious security threat to us. So thank you very much. Unity is the way to.
We shall agree and disagree based on reason,
Which is very okay.
intellectualism,
Yes.
and reality. History
Very,
is
very
of
okay.
the future. The admission of Somalia and the East African community brings a lot on table and some questions that are really intriguing. In my view, we shall talk about the population and the market, but you ask yourself, according to United Nations Trade Database, Uganda exports less to Somalia. And if you're going deeper in statistics, you look at the exports they are telling us, arms, ammunitions, and what do we produce in terms of arms and ammunitions, aircraft and space? You see? What are we gaining from the admission of Somalia economically? We have talked about South Sudan, and the market is available, but we have seen our traders crying on television after their trade items have been looted. Aren't we mixing spoiled or contaminated milk with fresh milk? Are we terrorist averse? Have we forgotten what happened during World Cup finals here in Kampala? Haven't we seen Al-Shabaab attacking Nairobi? Which measures have we put in place to contain these terrorist movements? Because now East African passport is there, there is free movement, no visa requirements. If you remove now travel restrictions, a terrorist is entering a country freely, because there is no way you identify this is from Eastern Congo and is part of LDC. But
Mr. Hallelujah.
Yes, please.
Even countries where there is free movement of people,
Yes.
and goods, there is some security details at the border.
How will you identify a terrorist from a civilian?
No, I mean, even when you need a visa, terrorists move. Even where you need a visa.
But it is hard. What I mean, there are some guidelines under which these Somalis have been entering this country. Are you informed about that? And I'm proud that we are opening markets. Economically, we are going to gain in the long run if certain measures are put in place. That's why I was asking, what are the immediate effects from the economic perspective and from the political perspective that we are going to gain from the admission of countries which are political and economically unstable?
So now, number one, Mr. Hallelujah.
Yes, please.
If you're a manufacturer,
Yes.
you now have, how many millions of people do you have in Somalia?
About 15.
Now you have another 15 million customers to buy your goods. That's already plus.
Yes.
So you need also to look at the security aspect, that when you have a population that is added to you, it also comes with its own economy that it can also support.
Mr.
The
Speaker.
socio-economic and political issues of the region now. Remember now, the remnants of Al-Shabaab have been attacking East Africa here. But Somalia has been saying, these are not my people. You handle them.
He's stressing a point of immediate economic benefits. If you look at Al-Shabaab is an Arabic word to mean the youth, non-so. So these young people rose up in Somalia because the foreign power wanted access to their country and to their border. Yeah, the Americans actually. They wanted that strategic post. So that's why they rose up. So with their East African community, the enemy, outside enemy is gone. So we have now opportunities within. So these Al-Shabaab, which is Arabic word for youth, are going to get economic benefits. They can export their goods to Somalia, to the other countries in the EAC. And then they will get immediate benefits. And then later we'll have long-term benefits. And once we have economic security, then there won't be no more reason to revolt for the Al-Shabaab.
Mr. Elia is interested more in immediate gains. but when you are planning for society,
Thank you for the submission.
when you are planning for countries and societies,
Yes.
you plan for long term.
But now, we have seen some of these things happening. We have seen Brexit. We have seen some states which have been fighting seceding the United States for the last 50 years. Meaning, expansionism also has some effect. And most of the empires here in Uganda or East Africa or the Great Lakes region, they collapsed because they were too large. So you have to think about that. There is also a possibility. We should not just be happy. We should not be party animals because Somalia has joined us. Another thing, we have seen the Eastern Congo and the Congolese are saying, we don't want people from the UPF, the Rwandese Patriotic Front, RPF, to come with the East African force into our country. How are you addressing these things? Because still, we are disagreeing. We are agreeing on paper, but in actions, we are doing a different thing.
We agree on paper, and disagree on ground.
But in reality, we are doing different things.
Let's borrow it from the European Union. Since its establishment, many member states have been having controversial issues. Actually, to the extent that the Brits had to exit.
Brexit.
Yes, to exit, but they did not really stop other member states to continue. Now, what I want to tell you, logically, the moment you create an administration, a regional administration, there are many issues you solve. Now, a country which has been failed due to weaknesses of the administration in their country can be managed at regional level. That's the essence. That you have a failed state in Somalia, a failed government in Somalia, which can indirectly or directly manned by regional leaders and help you stabilize. Two, you are saying now, you have been a problem to the entire region, causing insecurity. Now, the immediate benefit is that you stabilize the country first. Because all these other political, economic will follow when the country is stable. Now, stabilize Somalia, everything will flow.
Thank you.
Thirdly, lastly, you admit Somalia to block foreign aggression and possible colonial powers to take over that country. I told you from the beginning, to make a failed state, you fail, they take over. So those are the benefits why Africa now is waking up to making those blocks, that blocks can manage their affairs.
Remember, we are aiming at a united Africa.
Yes.
United
Remember,
States of
we are aiming at
So
a bigger
once
thing.
we empower these regional blocks,
We are not.
these regional blocks are empowered enough, one day all the regional blocks will now facilitate the United States of Africa.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, what the gentleman is saying is discussing the disadvantages. There are so many disadvantages, and challenges of this new bloc. There are so many. You can talk about the fast tracking of political integration.
No, advantages, you think you mean?
The disadvantage, because they are saying your democracy in Uganda is not like the one in DRC, like in Rwanda. So those are serious issues.
Those are challenges.
Challenges the community can handle. But we are saying, let us look at the bigger picture of uniting and stop imperialists from keeping on really the stuff.
Thank you so much.
Because it's totally right. It's really important we say that. Yes, Somalia is a failed state. Sorry. But in 2023, it's happening. President Mahmoud is asking for help. Do you want him to ask for help to China? Do you want him to ask for help to Russia? Or do you want him to go to East Africa to turn and rebuild this country? We want him to go to East Africa and first rebuild this country. Otherwise, he's going to go somewhere else.
It's not that I am anti-East African Community Federation. No, but I'm saying that do our leaders have the political will and the commitment to make sure that we have a strong East African community, we can command prices, we can command development, because that is what we want as... Yes, please.
Even this one that we are saying you are very happy now has been spearheaded by politicians, by East African leaders.
But the first one failed, and it is possible that even this one can collapse. Good to discuss about the negative outcomes and the positivity. But to what extent is Somalia, do we hold when Somalia joins the East African community? The greater extent is that we shall benefit, right?
Okay.
Then the lesser extent is that there are some political insecurities that may come in. But however much the political insecurities are able to come in, still, if they didn't join us, you can't push them away. Like, that speaker said, Honorable Hallelujah said that terrorists can easily come into the country because there is free movement of citizens across. Yes, even if there wasn't, still terrorists can come in. You talked about the passports. Still they can come in, they can produce different passports. We've seen that all over the world. So you've talked about the expansion, that in expansion, it can easily bring collapse. Yes, many kingdoms here, they failed because when they were expanding, they used to expand and put everything under one leadership. But here in East Africa, we are not expanding that Uganda is going to be the leader, no? Or Kenya or what, no? Leadership is divided. They sit and bring different ideologies.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
The world, globally, has various centers of gravity. Whenever Europe is attacked, Ukraine,
Power centers.
US comes in as a center of gravity. Whenever the Balkans are attacked, Russia comes in as a center of gravity. What is the center of gravity for Africa? So if we have East Africa, Somalia can run to East Africa. Because Somalia is typically a failed state. Uganda was a failed state. We were helped by Mwalimu Nyerere. We were helped by Moi. Kenya had deteriorated in 2008. Museveni came in and Chikwete. Rwanda in 1994. Museveni came in. So, really, here we are responding to two issues. Creating a center of gravity for the African race and responding to the call why we should have the center of gravity for strategic security, our continuity, and security. Thank you so much.
We know the East African community, back in the days, it had its issues of corruption and all that happened. But thanks to the heads of state that were there in 1999, they later enacted, revived this East African community. And the key objectives that we cannot forget, regional integration reflected by encouraging East African Customs Union, common market in 2010, and implementation of the East African Monetary Union Protocol. So I wouldn't like to proceed my submission today, but I would like to say there are a number of benefits that we are going to achieve within this economic integration. Right away from the start, the Casablanca group, led by Nyerere, in 1963, he talked about it. They disagreed with Nkrumah. Nkrumah was about forming one union at that time. So, through these small economic groups, we shall solely achieve the political goal that our forefathers dreamt about back in the day. Thank you so much.
There is an old African saying that goes, unity is strength. There is power in unity. For this case, I'm talking about unity, meaningful unity. We have heard about unity for the interest of imperialists, and this is what we have to avoid. So, as East African community, as Somalia joins the East African community, we have to put up structures to make sure that this unity benefits the people of East Africa, benefits the people of Africa, but not for the interests of imperialists. You know, today, in the era of neocolonialism, the colonialists are very wise. Sometimes they fund unity, but unity for their interest. So we have to be clear to ourselves that this unity has to benefit Africans. We saw it with ECOWAS. In ECOWAS, up to today that some West African countries are regaining their independence. All that along they have been uniting under ECOWAS, and you saw what happened when ECOWAS was trying to defend France, and when there was a military coup in Niger. So for this case, we have to get meaningful unity.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
You find that this is an issue that is two-way traffic, I can say. Maybe it is an issue that we can gain from as East African member states, or being part and parcel of such a community, but it can as well have negative contributions to the member states. Now, to begin with, now you find that politically, Somalia's membership would impact to the regional dynamics and cooperation within the East African community. Therefore, Somalia's inclusion could provide an opportunity for increased diplomatic engagement and dialogue among member states. It would also allow Somalia to participate in decision-making processes within the East African community. Now that Somalia has been given an opportunity and has been given a chance to be part of the former members or of the current members who are there, it will get an opportunity to participate in the political dynamics. Socially and economically, Somalia, of course, will also be affected in those dimensions, and the membership substantially joining the East African community, it will open up opportunities for increased trade, investments with other members. That is for the side of Somalia. Then it will also have an impact, and it will also help to enhance infrastructural development, manufacturing and services in that line. I'd also like to remind the House that there will be integration now that Somalia has been given a chance to be part and parcel of the East African community. There will be free movement, and people will be in position to exchange not only economically but also socially, and we shall have cultural diversification. Somalia, its inclusion to be part of the East African community, it will have some negative impact. For example, Somalia, as a state that has been having challenges, of course, with the rebel kind of activities, we shall find that in one way or the other, the members who have been causing chaos and political turmoil in Somalia will have an opportunity, or they will link up a chance and open up such chaotic tendencies in other East African countries. For example, Uganda. It will be easier for them now that they are part and parcel of the East African community.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
I think why the East African Standby Force has failed to normalize Eastern Congo is partly because the two states that are fighting against each other are members of the East African community. So when dealing with a situation like that,
I think you find yourself in a situation where you don't have to do something that annoys the other. So that's why I think the East African Standby Force has failed in DRC. And in Somalia, I think it will succeed, because given the fact that if you've been observing what's happening in Somalia from 2007, when the UPDF was deployed in Somalia, there have been a very great achievement in towards the stabilization of Somalia.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Somalia for joining East African community. And I would also like to thank it for bringing closer its 3,000 kilometer coastline closer to East African member countries and joining the 17 million people to the East African market and family. The East African community, the joining of Somalia, the East African community will serve as a lesson to other regional blocs that there is need to join more countries to their blocs, and there is need for uniting Africa as whole, not just regions, but Africa as whole. And however, there is just one thing I need to remind you: for any institution to progress, there is need to always follow the bylaws or treaties formed to guide it. What I would say, East Africa formed a treaty, and Article number 3 says, for any country to be added onto the East African community, it should be having good governance and security. For any East African country to be added onto the East African community, should be having good governance and security. And then they did not follow that rule, because we know the history of Somalia. Somalia has been having conflicts since 1991, and it has been also having disputes with the neighboring states. It was having disputes with Kenya, conflicting with the borderline. It's having disputes with the Djibouti. So, if you expect that country and you do not consider what you put into law, what the treaty that you put into law that is going to govern the adding of other countries into the community.
Free your mind now. Be part of People's Pan-African Parliament, the Pan-African Pyramid Debate, with your speaker, Andrew Irumba Katusa.
To sum up this whole debate, because a lot has been said, I'm not here to set the debate, but the East African community has existed for a long time, and a lot has been happening in Congo. And we believe that Somalia has been birthed or adopted by the East African community. So we believe the East African community here is a parent, right? So if a parent is not able to give accountability for how he or she has been able to sustain the children he has had before, how are they going to be able to protect Somalia? We want the East African community to come out and be more accountable to what's happening in Congo, because there's a lot that's going on silently, and we are not hearing it addressed anywhere. Not even the Ugandan media is addressing it. And then there are claims that colonialists are funding Ugandan rebels in courts. These are things that I would call it uncensored information that's out there, not on the mainstream media, but out there in the media like TikTok, things that bloggers do. There have been strikes, demonstrations of Congolese people having pictures of our beloved presidents, saying they want these presidents out of their country's issues. But then, Congo is a member of the East African community, if I'm to be well knowledgeable about it.
That's correct.
So we want the East African community to come and intervene in the matter before it can adopt another child like Somalia. We want them to investigate what's happening in Congo. We want justice for the people in Congo. We want them to be accountable to the lives of mothers, children. Our sisters are being raped on a daily, and everyone is silent. Thank you very much. So what we demand is more accountability. We would love it for Africa to be one big great state, but without accountability, with our leaders, trying to play the hypocrite in the face of the people, and then they play to be a pan-Africanist, this won't work. Thank you very much.
I wanted to make concluding remarks, but Akil has helped me. He has helped the other gentleman and me, all of us. So she has closed the debate. Thank you so much. See you next Friday.